Okay. We are recording. We are live on YouTube. It is 7 o'clock on the dot. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. I am Sunshine Lovelace with Outdoor Chattanooga. I am the customer relations specialist. We really appreciate you guys taking an hour out of your evening to join us for Backpacking 101, learning a new skill and hopefully inspiring you to get out and try something new. Hi, David. Thanks for joining us. I do see a lot of familiar names have logged in. If for those of you that are unfamiliar with Zoom, the platform we are using tonight, we are in a webinar format, which means you won't need your mic or your video. You just get to watch myself and Cole in the presentation this evening. To interact with us, to engage with us this evening, there is a chat function and a Q&A function. So in a traditional meeting setting for Zoom, most of you are familiar with the chat. If you are on a desktop or a laptop, if you hover your cursor, it'll pull up that bar, tap on chat, or click on the chat, and you should be able to type whatever you want into the chat. That should come to me. For the Q&A, that's the other function you should have. Click on that if you want to ask a question to Cole specifically about backpacking, and we will answer those as we go through the presentation this evening. If you're on mobile, same thing. Sometimes you have to tap the phone in order to get the menu to pull up for you. You might even have 3 buttons on the side that say more, but you should be able to also interact with us even if you're on mobile. If you're driving and listening to us or watching us, don't interact with us. Wait until you get to a safe spot, okay? Keep it safe out there, everybody. I am one more time. We've got 87 people, 88 people. I am one more time going to drop the official welcome message into the chat. There is a sign-in link, a little kind of Google form link. Please click on that. Go over to the form, fill it out completely. It helps us track how many people we're serving so we can continue to offer free programs like this. You'll also be entered for a chance to win a map and compass navigation course with our friends at REI. And you can request an Outdoor Chattanooga sticker, because the more of those we can send out, the better. And it's our way of saying thanks for being with us this evening. You can also drop in the chat, tell us where you're joining us from, and engage with the other attendees while you're at it. Let's see, other things you need to know. Outdoor Chattanooga. We are a unique division within the city of Chattanooga, part of economic and community development. Our role is to promote all things outdoors and encourage people to get outside and play in the scenic city. We do that through multiple platforms, one being information. We have a website that you can go to and find information about any outdoor activity you might be interested in trying while you visit or if you live here. And then we have programs such as this, where we reach you virtually via computer, or we literally take you by the hand and take you outside and teach you something new. We provide all the equipment, we provide all the instruction. We really try to break down barriers and make it as accessible as possible for as many people as possible within our region. Beyond that, we also help with the big special events that roll through Chattanooga. Hopefully those are coming back very soon. Seems like there is light at the end of this COVID tunnel. So thanks for being with us. I know a lot of you have joined for multiple of our workshops. We did learn technology. We taught ourselves technology in the face of COVID to figure out how to continue to engage with people and teach outdoor skills. And this was a platform that we found actually has been working pretty successfully. So thanks for doing that with us. And we are outdoor professionals. We know outdoors. We're not awesome techie people. So if you guys encounter anything weird or wonky this evening, bear with us. We will try to fix it as quick as possible. I'm going to start monitoring the chat. Cole, I'm going to officially turn it over to you to get started. Welcome to Backpacking 101, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction, Sunshine. And again, my name is Cole Henderson. I'm the program specialist here at Outdoor Chattanooga and the host of the Backpacking 101 workshop tonight. And thank you, everybody, for coming out to listen to us tonight. I guess to me specifically for the Backpacking 101, and also Sunshine for being a great host. We hope you learned something. Like she said at the very end, you can chime in with any questions feedback, comments, anything you might want to know about backpacking, and I will do my very best to answer them. So without further ado, let's share the screen.
Yeah, and while Cole is sharing his screen, I would love to get some feedback from you guys. Let's see how many people are paying attention. We got 102 people on the call right now. Let us know if you have backpacked before or not. Let's kind of get a gauge, see where everybody's at, where our starting point is. And not that we're going to go back and change the presentation, but it gives us a baseline to see where we're starting from. So yeah, check yes or no. Have you backpacked before? Yes or no? Cole, what do you think? Do you think most people on here have backpacked before, or never have they ever?
I would say most have tried it. I'd say at least 90% have tried it.
Okay, we got about 84%, 85% have voted. I'm gonna close this out, 86, and I'm gonna share it. Hopefully it's popping up on everyone's screen.
All right, I was wrong.
So we do have a lot of never have I evers. That's awesome. This is perfectly targeted for that. Real quick before we get into the next one. No, I'll just let you do it. Well, no, I do want to know. What are your guys' concerns or fears with backpacking? What stopped you from trying it up until this point? Like, why haven't you put on a backpack and ventured out into the woods? Does anyone want to give a vote on that? And I totally made these answers up. So if you think they're silly, those came from my brain. So what are you guys' biggest concerns about going backpacking? You don't have the gear, you don't know what gear to get, you're worried about getting lost, don't have anybody to go with, you've never been, so you don't know what you're doing, you're worried about wildlife encounters, or maybe the creepy crawlies and bugs and snakes, not sure what you're going to eat, you don't think you could survive, or maybe it's something else altogether. All right, we got about 75% voted. I've wasted enough of your time on this. I'm going to share the results. Number one answer, you don't have anyone to go with. I actually like that you guys put that, because it is smart to go with other people.
Absolutely.
All right, Cole, it's up to you. Take it away.
I was going to say the number one would have been don't have access to the gear, or just don't know what gear to buy. And that was the second most popular. But yeah, going with somebody is very important, for sure.
Chiggers. Somebody doesn't like chiggers. Thanks, Lisa.
All right, well, let's kick this thing off. So we like to do the polling questions to try and gauge our audience, get a feel for everyone's experience. I'm going to go ahead and let you know this specific workshop is going to be more for beginners. This is going to be more about the gear and how to prep for your trip, thinking about logistics. And then when we get into the gear aspect, there's a lot of things to know about backpacking when it comes to preparing and knowing what gear to have. And there's different seasons. So this is going to be a very broad kind of 101 basic class to teach you everything you need to know about the gear you'll need to go backpacking. So I hope you enjoy. And like we talked about, just give us any questions at the end, and I'll be happy to try and answer it the best that I can. So starting out backpacking, I believe that you need to start out in a small way. Go with a friend, do something that you've been on before. If it's a day hike that you have been on before, the trail, the area, go somewhere that you're familiar with. That will allow you to be prepared, to know what the camp situation looks like, to know if there's a water source. That'll always kind of ease you into starting backpacking. Don't get overwhelmed with, I need to do a 2-nighter or a 3-nighter. That usually comes with experience. So start small with your first backpacking trip and prepare. Take ownership of your navigation. Make sure you know, obviously, where you're going, but you have a map. You know how to use that map, whether it be on your phone or a physical map. Don't rely on other people to do all the navigation for you, or to bring extra gear because you don't have extra gear, or to give you food. I mean, I've been on trips where I ended up packing way too much food and friends looking at me like, oh, I don't have dinner. Do you have anything you can share with me, or whether it be breakfast? So make sure you have all your own gear, all your own food. Don't be that moocher, that person that's always asking for things to borrow. And then practice using your gear before the trip. Educate yourself on the gear that you have, how to use it. You know, a lot of backpacks have features you probably never even knew you had, and you never really opened up the manual to kind of see what that backpack is meant to do. So know how to use your gear. Check the weather. That's so important. Check the weather. Yes, weather does change, but knowing the weather ahead of time, having a plan in place for whatever that weather looks like is going to prepare you best for being out there. Pack when you're relaxed. This is something that I had to learn, I think, after I kind of got out of the umbrella of my dad's expertise as a kid. He kind of always had this checklist in the back of his head. We'd just start throwing together what we thought we needed, and then he'd check off a bunch of things that we had in the pile and then tell us, oh, you forgot this, this, and this. You need a toothbrush, you need toothpaste, little things you don't think about, but prepare when you're relaxed. Prepare the night before, and just make sure you've laid everything out. And if you need a checklist, start checking the boxes of what all you have so you don't forget anything. I went off on a backpacking trip a couple of years ago, and I'm pretty experienced, and forgot a lighter and couldn't get my camp stove to light. I didn't have a lighter to light my stove, therefore I couldn't eat my dinner. I couldn't get a fire started. It turned into ordeal. Luckily, I had flint and magnesium and was able to get one started, but it's just little things that make all the difference in the world when you're out there. Just make sure you've checked off everything you need before the trip. Have a medical kit. That's very important. Your local REI, or you can order stuff online, will have different size medical kits for the amount of people in your group, or the type of situation you could be in. Just have a medical kit, have some basic medical supplies, always good to carry. Pack enough food and snacks for the length of your trip, and tell someone where you are going. I cannot preface this enough. Telling somebody where you're going is majorly important. You know, especially we were talking about earlier with that polling question. Oh, I don't have a friend to go with. You know, it's going by yourself. There's a risk involved with that. If you're very experienced, you know the area, you've let someone know where you're going, that's fine. Going solo backpacking is fine. A lot of people do it. But always, always, always make sure that you let someone know where you're going. And even before I leave my vehicle at the trailhead, I might even most of the time I'll put a note in my window that just says how long I'm going to be out, just in case a ranger's closing down the park and they need to know that you're going to be out there for a couple nights, and you know you don't want anybody to worry about you. They can see that little note on your dash and be assured that you're going to be out there for that amount of time. And say you got injured on the trail, that note is going to let somebody know if it's 2 days old, oh shoot, that person's car is still here, they're still out there, they might be in trouble. So just communicate where you're going. That's a really important step. So we're going to jump right in here. This is a really nice video that REI has put together for a backpacking checklist, and you'll find throughout this presentation, it would seem that we are REI biased, but we're not. We love all outdoor retailers. We support them all, but REI does a fantastic job with, you know, informational videos on all outdoor education. So I really like their videos, and I think they do a great job. So that's kind of why I picked them, but let's kick this thing off.
Hey guys, the topic of what to take backpacking sparks a lot of debate among gearheads. We love it, but if you want things simplified, we have a checklist that can help you out. Here's the deal on what I like to take backpacking. No matter what you decide to take in your pack, you always have to have the 10 essentials. Those are navigation, so compass, map, and some sort of protective cover, headlamp, sun protection, First aid kit. So I have mine in this bag, but there's also lots of really awesome first aid kits that already come prepackaged and have their own compartments. Knife. I like this knife because it's really lightweight and really easy to use, but a multi-tool might work for you. Fire, so whether that's waterproof matches or a lighter or whatever it is that will work best for your trip. Shelter, so tent or tarp or hammock or whatever. Extra water, so that's some sort of filter or purifier, and then something to hold your water. You can use a water bottle, but I use a reservoir because it helps me stay hydrated and it stays close to my back. Extra food, so I keep mine in a bear canister. You could also use a bear sack, or you can use some cord and a carabiner if you want to do a bear hang and know how to do that. And then extra clothing. So getting into some of the other things that I bring in my pack, in this instance, I'm going somewhere where I need to be concerned about bears. So I have bear spray in a holster. This is just so that it can be easily accessible on the outside of my pack because bear spray doesn't work if it's inside your pack. A couple other things. Oh yeah, I have my poop kit. So in here I have this is what I use as my pee rag, which is really just for women, but highly recommend having a pee rag. And then a trowel, as well as some blue bags, and then any toilet paper that I would be bringing with me would go in here as well. Oh yeah, so then I have my sleeping pad and my sleeping bag, which is in a compression sack, just to make it a little bit smaller to easily fit in the bottom of my pack. And then I have my cook kit. So I have this titanium spork, which is awesome if you don't want to break sporks on trail. And then I also have a bowl with a lid on it. I like to put my food into here if I think I might have leftovers for breakfast in the morning or to help rehydrate, and then I can put this bowl into my hat to stay warm. And then I have my little cook kit here. So in here I have a couple things. So I have a small rag for drying things, and then I have this pot grabber handle, and then I have a small stove. The stove that I have is auto lighting, which I really like, but there's a ton of different options out there. And then I have some soap, and I have a windscreen as well. Oh, and then I also have fuel. This is a really large canister of fuel, which I have for economy's sake. There's a bunch of different sizes, and some people will choose to put their fuel into their pot instead. It's totally up to you, but make sure you have fuel. What else? So yeah, so then I also have my toiletries, which I'll keep in the brain of my pack. And these are things like toothpaste, toothbrush, contacts case if you're like me and wear contacts or glasses or whatever. Just keep in mind that anything that does smell like toothpaste will have to go into your bear canister. So I recommend bringing as few smelly things as you can, which means leaving the deodorant at home. And then I also have my camp shoes, which are super lightweight. And these are great because they give your feet a break from boots. This is obviously, a lot of people will bring a lot less than this or a lot more. I'm going for a couple days, and I like to kind of have a little bit more comfort in some ways. Oh yeah, and also my cell phone. So like a lot of people, I use this as my camera as well as my alarm clock. So I have this guy. My trail weight on my pack with food and water is about 28 to 30 pounds. Like I said, you can go a lot lighter than that, and you can also go a lot heavier than that if you want to. So that's the deal on what I like to take in my backpack. If you do want a checklist, we have a printable version. Hey guys, the topic of what to take.
All right, so that is kind of just a basic checklist of everything that I would recommend to bring with you. I think she covered even some of the luxury things that you might want to bring. If you're not a thru hiker hiking the AT or hiking the Pacific Crest Trail or whatever, you can bring your toothbrush and toothpaste. You can bring baby wipes if you want to just be able to clean your armpits or clean your private areas. I bring things like that just to make things more comfortable, make things a little bit more luxury while on the trail, if you want to put it that way. But these are some essentials. These are actually essentials that I would recommend always having in your day pack or your backpack for backpacking, but just essentials you need for hiking, for survival, just for preparation. Think about map and compass. Your phone could have a GPS on it, can have a map on it. You can download the right apps, AllTrails. There's all kinds of apps you can use for that. I'm not going to dive deep into that. Always have a headlamp, always have a headlamp, extra batteries. Sun protection, that's always good depending on where you live. First aid kit, of course, knife, fire, shelter. Shelter could be a bivy. There's solar bivvies you can buy at your outdoor stores that would just be a quick little survival, insulate your body heat or keep your body heat inside that bivy and keep you warm if it came down to just waiting it through a night. Having that, extra food, extra water, extra clothes. These are all things that seem pretty self-explanatory, but it's easy to overlook little things like this when you're going out on a hike. So just make sure you have these essentials first before you start packing on all the actual backpacking items before you go. So essentials list for backpacking. Of course, we've got our sleeping bag. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute, differences between synthetic and down sleeping bags and kind of where that is in the modern age today. Ground pad, tent or hammock, backpack, hiking boots, of course, camp stove with pots, bowls, and utensils, if you so choose, water filtration and bladder with drinking hose. Make sure you bring a filter. If you don't bring a filter, make sure you bring enough water and ration your water. That's really important. Extra layers of clothing and socks. I always have extra layers. I definitely always have extra socks. I usually have an extra shirt, but I'll typically, depending on the season, I'll always have a rain jacket. Even when they're not calling for rain, I'll still stuff it in my backpack. You never know. It's always nice to have in case you do get a pop-up shower or something like that. Obviously food, headlamp with extra batteries. We talked about that. Fire starter kit. And then optional items. This is where we get into things that most people wouldn't probably consider or think about, but a garbage bag, small, medium. Garbage bags can be used for a lot of things, but a small one could be used for putting any of your trash in. Also using good etiquette out on the trail. If you see trash, pick up the trash, put it in that garbage bag, try to be a steward to your area, your community. You can also use garbage bags for survival and all sorts of things, but just having a small one's a good thing. Aluminum foil. I like aluminum foil just for different things. You can wrap up food, put it by the fire. You could block the wind from getting into your stove flame. You can actually kind of wrap that aluminum foil around the fuel canister and the stove itself and block that wind from coming in so that it keeps the flame good and keeps it going. Because occasionally you could be on top of a mountain, you could start your little stove up and that flame is open from here where the fuel canister is to where the pot's sitting, and the wind would blow through and blow it right out. So if you have that aluminum foil around it, you can keep that from happening. Bring your toothbrush, toothpaste, clean teeth, clean mouth, probably make you make better decisions. Camp chair, extra socks, poop kit, baby wipes or toilet paper. I've gotten to where I really like to bring baby wipes. You can buy some that are biodegradable. It's not that big a deal, or you can pack it out. Typically I'll pack it out, but having some baby wipes can make you feel cleanly if you're on a 2-night trip in the woods and you can't necessarily jump in a river or a creek. Just another way to make you feel a little cleaner. Trekking poles, there's a lot of different kinds out there, but you can buy trekking poles from your local outdoor store. I won't get into that, but having a book or a journal is just another thing you can bring to entertain yourself out by the fire if you're solo, or if you're just wanting to kind of document your experience for the trip. All right, so finding the right backpack. So there's a lot of different sizes. Typically, for an overnight pack, if you're not going to stuff a tent in your backpack and maybe there's like a cave, or it's going to be a completely clear night, you have no chance of showers and you want to sleep outside, you could have a 35-liter backpack that usually accommodates everything else that you need to stuff in it. And it could be a day pack as well. So you could buy your day pack that's 35 liters. It'd be a little big, but at least you can stuff everything in it. And you could still use it as a backpack for backpacking for a one-nighter, but you would need to pack efficiently. Most packs that you'll see for 2 or 3 day packs are 35 to 50 liters. That's more of a weekend backpack. Like 40 liters is your typical size. It's big enough to carry a backpacking sleeping bag, tent, pad, clothing, all the stuff you'd need. Your stove, everything you would typically bring, you could probably fit it in a 40-liter backpack, no problem, for a one-nighter. sometimes 2-nighter, depending on how you pack. I myself, I have an Osprey pack, and I believe it's a 55 liter, it's a 65 liter. So it's a big backpack, and this would fall into the last category, the multi-day pack. This could be used for a 5-nighter. It could be used for through hiking if you were hiking the AT or any other really long trail. That's the bigger pack that you can have. It's going to have all the room and gadgets you need. But just pick a pack that's going to accommodate the types of trips that you're hoping to do.
Hey, I'm Miranda with the REI Co-op. A pack can make or break your backpacking trip, and there are tons of awesome options out there right now. Let's take a second to geek out about packs. When choosing a pack, one of the first things you need to decide is the capacity. The capacity of pack is largely going to depend on the type of backpacker you are. For example, if you're an ultralight backpacker, you're probably carrying a lot less gear and you can get away with something much smaller. Whereas if you like to have some luxury, then you're probably gonna want a larger pack. But generally speaking, if you are doing a weekend trip, you're looking at a pack like this one that's somewhere between 30 and 50 liters. This pack here is a 45-liter pack. These are great for weekend trips, for overnights, or for warm weather backpacking where you don't need to carry a lot of heavy gear. If you're looking for a multi-day pack, you're gonna want something that's somewhere between 50 and 70 liters. This is my pack here, and it's a 60-liter pack. These are great for carrying some additional items, as well as layers, clothing, and more food and fuel. So this is a pretty common size pack, and it'll work for a multitude of different trips. If you're looking for something that is going to carry a lot of gear, you're looking at an extended trip pack. So something like this one here, which is 100 liters. Extended trip packs cover anything that's 70 liters and above. These bags are really designed to haul a ton of gear, so they're good for mountaineering or for extended winter backpacking where you're carrying a lot of heavy layers and gear, but they're also great for parents who are backpacking with children if they need to carry their kids' stuff in the pack as well. A quick note on ultralight backpacking: if you're looking to get your base weight, and that's the weight of your pack minus consumables, so all of your gear minus your food, your fuel, and your water. If you're looking to get that weight under 10 or 12 pounds, then you're probably looking at a pack that's a lot simpler and a lot lighter. Something more like this guy here. You can have your pack actually weigh a lot less on its own because the gear that you're putting inside is going to weigh less and it's going to be significantly smaller. Okay, so that's capacity. A pack's frame is designed to transfer weight from your shoulders and onto your hips for a more comfortable carry. There are two main types of pack frames right now, the internal frame and the external frame. This pack here has an internal frame, and this is certainly the more common type of pack nowadays, and they're definitely lighter than external frame packs. There are a few different ways that a pack may have this internal frame. This one has metal tubing that runs around the outside of the pack, but they may also have a metal V shape or even just a hard sheet of plastic, like this pack here. This is definitely not designed to carry as much weight as an internal frame pack like this, but it's a good option for ultralight backpackers, and it will still provide some structure. The other type of frame on a pack is an external frame pack. These used to be the go-to, but we now have an updated design with the internal frame packs. These bags are very durable, the frames are very durable, but they're not as common and you really don't find them very much anymore. These are a good option for people who want to lash a lot of gear to the outside of their pack, so they're a good choice for hunters or anyone who's going to be carrying unusually sized loads, and they're also just a really good throwback if you want to experience what backpacking used to be like. Some ultralight backpackers will choose to use frameless packs. While these don't do as good of a job of transferring the weight to your hips, you may not need that if you're carrying a lot less stuff. These are basically just rucksacks that have backpack straps attached. To offer some protection, you can add a closed-cell foam sleeping pad on the inside of the pack, and this will protect your back from the gear inside and provide a little bit of structure. Keep in mind that any features that you add to your pack are also going to add weight. So you want to strike a balance between the ease of use of the pack and the additional weight that you're adding. There are a ton of different features that you may find on backpacks, so we're just going to cover a few of the pretty common ones. The first one is access. Most packs are going to have top-loading access, like this one. This is just a cinch cord that opens up and allows you to get to all of your gear. You may also find packs that have side zippers or U-zippers. This gives you access into the main compartment of the pack, so you can get items that are at the bottom or in the middle of the pack. This is a feature that I love. I think it's really easy. Some packs may also have detachable pieces that turn into day packs, like this one. This lid here has straps that come out, and then this can be taken off and used as a day pack for day hikes. Packs may also have this turn into a hip belt, or you may find packs that have a removable reservoir that comes out. This is a really awesome feature if you plan on backpacking in somewhere and then day hiking from wherever you're setting up camp. My pack has the side or the panel loading access, and then it also has a removable day pack, and these are two features that I love. Another really common feature is pockets. So packs may have pockets on the side for water bottles or 2 pockets on the hip for.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause that. She covered most everything I wanted to hear for the backpacks. One thing also you want to always have with your backpack is a rain fly. Have that in a pocket somewhere where you know where it's at. And she was talking about features. You can take the hood off sometimes and have a little day pack. Just get to know your backpack, talk to an expert, let them know what you're wanting to do, the type of backpacking or style of backpacking that you're wanting to dive into, and they will give you plenty of advice on which packs are the best. I myself have an Osprey, but there's all kinds of brands out there. They're all pretty equivalent, but I can vouch for Osprey. They're awesome. Warranty's awesome. I've really enjoyed their packs, and they are at the top of the backpacking game. So definitely highly recommend that brand.
Hey, I'm Miranda with the REI.
Hold on one second. Let's go ahead and fast forward. All right. So she talked a little bit about this, but making sure that you have the weight in your backpack distributed correctly is very important. You want 80 to 90% of that weight to be sitting on your hips. This is a common kind of beginner mistake is not realizing that, or having the backpack system customized to where it's fitting comfortably on your hips and shoulders, and you're not feeling any kind of rubbing in weird places. You'll learn that the hard way your first couple of times if you don't get your pack adjusted correctly. Make sure that when you buy a backpack, you understand how to adjust the hip belt, understand how to adjust the straps and the shoulders. This really is a huge, huge factor in giving you a comfortable experience when backpacking, because otherwise you're going to have burns, you're going to have bruising, maybe you're going to have a very sore back because you didn't take the time to customize your backpack the right way and get it to where it's distributing the weight in the hip area. So that's very important. Some companies are going to offer different types of hip belts that can be custom. There's pivoting hip belts, which is what I have on my Osprey Atmos. I can actually adjust the hips and bring them in if I want them to fit a different size waistline, or I can bring them out even more if I had a 38 to 40 waistline. There's just a lot of customization these days in most modern backpacks that you can use to adjust the hips. And then, like you saw on some of those backpacks, you don't see the external frames anymore. That's kind of the old school, the old frame, aluminum poles on the outside of the pack. That's not very common at all. That's more old school these days. But a lot of the venting now, it makes for breathability between your back and the backpack, so you're not just sweating, underneath your clothing because the backpack's riding right on your back. It gives you nice venting nowadays. And then hip belts have accessory pockets. That's what's really nice about them. Mine has 2 little pockets on both sides. I can stuff a trail bar. I can stuff my phone for easy access. Anything you want to get to really quickly, those pockets are very handy. So moving on, sleep system consists of 3 basic components: the sleeping bag, the sleeping pad, and the sleeper's clothing. So when deciding on a sleeping bag for backpacking, consider these factors. Temperature rating is very important. Choose a bag that's rated a little bit lower than the typical low. I have a 20-degree bag, and my bag also has vent zippers. So I can undo those vent zippers if it was kind of hot outside and say it was 50 degrees and I was burning up inside this bag. I can undo that vent zipper. It goes all the way down to my feet, and it takes that bag rating from a 20-degree bag to more like a 40 or 50-degree bag. It lets airflow come into the bag and I can cool down. And then if I'm actually cold at that point, I can zip them halfway back up and get my body heat back up. So that's something to look for in a sleeping bag. A sleep system being comfortable at a particular temperature depends on many other variables, especially the R value of your sleeping pad. This is something most people don't think about. The R value represents the rating of the sleeping pad and how insulated it's going to be. If it's not insulated, you're not going to be able to retain a lot of body heat. It's going to allow that temperature of the ground to kind of come through the bag, and then also affect the temperature of your sleeping bag because it's not insulated. So making sure that pad has a good R value for the temperature you're going to be out in. We'll talk about that in just a second. Types of insulation in a sleeping bag. There is down material, which is more natural. It's probably the best you can get as far as warmth, but it also comes with a price. Down stuff is not cheap, but it is the best of the best as far as compressing things, lightweight and warmth. Great. Synthetic is still really good. It's the next best thing. It is a little heavier, but one positive about the synthetic, it is easier to dry out. It doesn't retain moisture as bad as down will. If down gets wet, it takes a while to dry out. That's one downside. And we'll go over that in just a minute, but just wanted you to know that. Weight, the quality of your insulation and the cut of your bag are the big factors when you compare weights. Compare bags with the same temperature rating. So make sure when you're comparing different brands, make sure the temperature rating aligns first, and then start thinking about the weight and all the other features that come with that. So like we talked about, there's a lot of features, but there's stash pockets. You can have your phone in a little pocket that's right next to your chest if you wanted to. You can have customizable zippers to vent the bag. You can have other little pockets for different things. A lot of different little features on sleeping bags these days. So there's three types of sleeping bags. There's the mummy, there's the semi-rectangular, and there's the rectangular. So the mummy is my personal favorite for backpacking. And the reason why is it retains your body heat the best. It's going to be more slim cut, but it also helps you maintain body heat a lot better because it's closed into your body more. And that's what you'll typically see backpackers using. But depending on the season and the temperature outside, you can go for a semi-rectangular. That's a nice hybrid between a car camping sleeping bag and a backpacker sleeping bag. So it can go both ways. And it's also great if you're a side sleeper and you roll a lot. The semi-rectangular bag will allow you to move around a lot easier and be a little bit more mobile in the sleeping bag. The rectangular bag is your typical car camping bag. I wouldn't recommend it for backpacking, but if that was the only thing you had and it was rated for the temperature that you're going to be out there for, it would work, but it is not the best for backpacking. It's great for car camping pretty commonly. Show you another quick video about sleeping bags.
My favorite way to end a long day of backpacking is cozying up in my sleeping bag. But with so many options, how do you know which one is right for you? Let's talk about sleeping bags. Before we get started, let's just talk for a second about weight. When choosing a sleeping bag, you'll want to strike a balance between the weight, the warmth, and the cost of the sleeping bag. You could get the coziest, roomiest, warmest sleeping bag out there, but you'd probably end up carrying a few extra pounds. And we all know that every ounce counts when you're backpacking. So you want to strike a good balance so that you get something that's going to be warm enough, but also isn't going to weigh too much. In the same respect, before you buy the lightest weight sleeping bag possible, remember that your enjoyment on trail is super important. So you'll want to get some features that will still make the bag comfortable for you. Okay, let's dive in. When deciding what temperature of bag you need, you'll want to take a look at what season you plan on backpacking in. Of course, these temperatures vary widely depending on how you sleep, and also seasonal temperatures vary depending on what area you're backpacking in. But for the most part, if you plan on backpacking in the summer, you'll be looking for a bag that's rated for 30 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. This bag here is rated at 36 degrees. These are great for warm weather camping, and they're also sometimes used for festival camping. If you're going to be backpacking in the early spring or the late fall, you'll want a bag that's rated somewhere between 10 and 30 degrees. This bag here is rated for 21 degrees Fahrenheit. These bags are sometimes referred to as 3-season sleeping bags as they cover a wide variety of temperatures. For backpacking in the winter, you'll want to look for a bag like this one, rated at 10 degrees and lower. This bag here is rated for 10 degrees. These are really winter weight bags, and there's a variety of temperatures, so find one that'll work for your winter camping. When you look at the temperature rating of a bag, you'll see two numbers listed. The higher number is referred to as the comfort rating, and this is the temperature at which the average cold sleeper will be comfortable. Because women tend to sleep colder than men, this is sometimes referred to as the women's rating. This lower number is the lower limit rating. This is the temperature at which the average warm sleeper will be comfortable. Because men tend to sleep warmer than women, this is sometimes referred to as the men's rating. One cool thing about this rating system is that these numbers are provided by an independent organization. That means that you can actually compare the temperatures on bags across brands to decide which one is right for you. Keep in mind that while these numbers provide you with a good general idea of the temperature of the bag, they are of course based on the average person. So you'll want to take in all different factors, such as how comfortable you are in certain temperatures, what you've eaten that day, your metabolism, your sleeping pad, all of that's going to factor into how comfortable the bag is for you. Okay, let's move on to insulation. There are two main types of sleeping bag insulation, and those are down, like this bag here, and synthetic, like this one. Down sleeping bags are filled with feathers, whereas synthetic bags will use insulation that looks something like this. The main pro of using a down sleeping bag is that it will pack small and weigh less than a synthetic bag. This means that if you have a 20-degree synthetic bag sitting next to a 20-degree down bag, the down bag will pack smaller and weigh less than the 20-degree synthetic bag. One thing to note is that synthetic sleeping bags will keep you warm even if they get wet, whereas down, when it gets wet, is not going to do very much to insulate. There are down bags that have been treated with a water repellency, but if they get soaked fully through, they're not going to provide very much insulation. This does, however, come at a cost. Down sleeping bags are generally considerably more expensive than synthetic. Some people may have allergies to down, so if that's the case, it's a good idea to go ahead and get a synthetic bag. If you're concerned about using down for ethical reasons, you can look for traceable, ethically sourced down, or just go ahead and get synthetic. There's one more thing to talk about with down bags, and that is fill power. Without getting too deep into it, fill power is essentially a measurement of how well the down will loft and trap your body heat. The higher the number of fill power, the better the down will compress and the lighter that it will be. Both of these sleeping bags are rated for 20 degrees, but this sleeping bag has a 600 fill power and this one has 850 fill power. You can see that there's an obvious size difference between the two, and this bag weighs about a pound less. There are two main shapes of backpacking sleeping bags. Those are mummy bags and semi-rectangular bags. Mummy bags, like this one here, are shaped like a mummy. So they're narrow at the feet and then wider here at the shoulders. Mummy bags are the most efficient sleeping bags for backpacking, as once you're inside the bag, there's not a ton of extra air, so the bag will help retain your warmth a little bit better. These bags, however, don't give you a ton of space to move around, so generally speaking, if you want to sleep on your side, you'll have to roll over with the mummy bag rather than inside it. Semi-rectangular bags covers a wide range of bag types and shapes, but
All right, so that kind of covers what we need to know about sleeping
my
bag.
favorite way to end a long
So getting to the temperature ratings, this is kind of a chart to go off of for your ground pad and also your sleeping bag as well. So you can take a look at that. Basically, if it's really extremely cold, you want 5.5 plus on your R-rated value for the ground pad, and you would want a 0 degree sleeping bag or lower. Typically, that's going to be, places in the Rockies, kind of like we talked about with Stan earlier. But, if it gets down below 20 degrees, you're going to want a 0 degree bag. If it's going to be in the teens and you're in the Southeast or, anywhere that's going to get below 20, you probably want something like a 15 or lower bag. 0 is what I would recommend because you could always vent it if it got too hot. I have a 20 degree bag because I can kind of use it all season. And I also have a bag liner. There is that option as well. So if you bought a 20 degree bag and you wanted to have a liner that would increase the temperature a little bit, you could have a sleeping bag liner that would make it a little bit warmer, and you could just pull that liner right over the bag and it would give it maybe another 5 to 10 degrees in warmth. So here's some sizes of ground pads. There's a lot out there. The far left is probably your luxurious queen bed for car camping. I wouldn't recommend that one, but the one Immediately after that to the right is it's kind of similar to Big Agnes. Big Agnes makes ground pads. I have the Big Agnes, I believe it's the Q Court. Don't quote me on that, but it's basically the queen bed of backpacking. It compresses really small. It's really lightweight. I think it might be under 2 pounds. It's pretty light, but it's all air. It's basically an all air ground pad, and it's really long for me. I'm 6'3". I have more length in my head area and my feet area to just move around on it. I love it. And it also comes with a little sack that you can fill with air and pump up very easily, so you're not losing all the oxygen trying to blow this thing up. As you go along the line there's several different styles of ground pads. Some of them have these kind of these like interior walls of material they'll put in to fill the gaps where the air would go, that allows it to blow up faster. And also have a little bit better durability, I guess, when it comes to being punctured or having issues. In this video that I'm about to show, we'll talk a little bit about that. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I do want you to be educated on the different kinds of ground pads.
For the sake of both comfort and warmth, sleeping pads are crucial to getting a good night's rest in the backcountry. But how do you know which one's right for you? Let's talk about how to choose backpacking sleeping pads. When choosing a sleeping pad, there are 3 main factors that you'll want to consider, and those are comfort, weight, and insulation. Comfort generally comes from thicker, cushier sleeping pads, but you can gauge this by trying out a couple. You can do that at your local REI. Weight is pretty self-explanatory, which leads us to insulation. Most manufacturers will use a number called an R value to gauge how well their pads resist heat transfer from your body into the ground. The higher the R value, the more insulation the sleeping pad provides. A sleeping pad is a crucial part of your sleep system, and your sleeping bag alone won't provide enough warmth without a proper sleeping pad. So the first type of pad we're going to talk about are air pads. These are pretty self-explanatory. You blow air into them either with your mouth or with a lightweight pump, and then that's your mattress for the night. These are very thick and comfortable while still being lightweight, and most of them are packable, about to the size of a water bottle. They also come in a wide range of insulation options. So just as an example, this pad here has an R value of under 1, so it's truly a summer weight sleeping pad. And then this one has an R value of 5.7, so it's great for winter camping. Air pads provide insulation by having extra layers in between the exterior. So that might be an insulation layer and or some sort of reflective layer. You can also adjust the firmness on.
Kick this out. Hold on 1 second. All right, so with
For the
timing,
sake of both comfort and warmth, sleeping pads are.
So for timing's sake, we're going to move on. Basically, that video, you can check it out online if you want to learn more about the ground pads. There's a lot of different kinds, but I have a blow-up ground pad. It works great. A lot of these days, they're really durable. They come with a patch kit if you have any issues, and they compress really easily, and they're very lightweight. So choosing a tent, so there's single or doubles. A single wall tent is basically a tent that's all season. It's going to be used for extreme conditions. You could be a mountaineering. You could need to basically take it to somewhere where the winds are going to be really strong, snow is going to be really heavy, and you want something that's going to be very, very durable. That's a single wall tent. A double wall tent is what you see pretty much all the time. That's a tent that has, the first wall is just the tent with the venting and everything and the poles. The second wall would be your shell, your rain fly that goes over it. So that's why they call it a double wall tent. So one wall is your regular tent, and the other wall would be the layer that goes on top of it to make it waterproof in the event of rain. And we're going to skip ahead a little more because of time. 3-season tents are best suited for climates and conditions where you need to just have a double wall, and you want it to be able to be adaptable, versatile, where you could have it for all different seasons. 4-season tents are typically, they can be used year round, but are really geared towards winter excursions. They're built to withstand low temperatures, high winds, like we talked about. That's usually a single wall. That would be a 4-season tent. I always have a 3-season tent because I live in a moderate climate in the Southeast. But if you were living somewhere where the winter and the fall were pretty extreme, having a single wall tent probably is not a bad piece of gear to have in your system. All right, so living space. This is one of the most important attributes of a tent. Traditional tent dimensions such as width, length, and peak height only tell a part of the story. Having space around the tent where the fly extends out, where you can put your backpack and put your boots and poles and whatever else you want to keep dry, that's added space beyond the tent that you can have underneath a dry layer to put things. Having, accessibility on both sides, being able to have doors on both sides or maybe just one side. These are all things to think about. And the most important part is really having space for where you can stand up. So we're about to move to that. Floor dimensions. So choosing your floor dimensions, you want it to be about 25 inches per person in width. That'll give you enough space to not feel crammed inside the tent. If you have 2 people and it's a 2-person tent, having 50 to 60 inches in width is probably enough. 80 inches of length would be about right for most people. If you're going to have your dog with you, you might want to have 90 inches. Just some things to consider as far as your dimensions go for if you have your dog or if you're bringing your kids or whatever the situation is. Consider what length, what width, and what height you're going to need inside your tent for the people that are going to be with you. The wall geometry, this is what I was about to touch on. The wall geometry is important because basically that's the wall geometry is going to be how much space you have when you're sitting up in the tent, how much move around space you have above you. So tents typically will come up kind of like an A-frame would. And if you have a really, really slim cut A-frame type tent, when you're laying down, you might have plenty of room. But when you get up on your knees or you're sitting down, you might be hitting your head or rubbing your head on the tent. So considering kind of, they do base height off the top end of that length. And you could ask them how much of that space headroom wise can I move around in the tent? That's what this is. Considering how much wall geometry you have will tell you how much room around the tent you can move around while sitting up without hitting your head on the tent and feeling like you're claustrophobic. That's just going to tell you how much comfort you want. And that also is going to change the weight. If you do have a tent that's really boxy and it's kind of high where you do have a lot of room, it's probably going to be a little bit heavier. So if you're an ultralight backpacker and you're trying to save weight, you may just want the slimmest, most A-frame design that's going to be the lightest weight possible. But those are just some things to consider. So what about the weight? Weight. That's all you hear in backpacking. Light is right. Lightweight products are usually the way to go. That's not always the case. In tent design, there's a balance between lightweight materials and durability. A lighter tent will most likely be constructed of more delicate materials, whereas a heavier tent will be more durable. Generally, in my opinion, you can go ultralight if you're trying to do a long backpacking trip and you're wanting to just completely save weight in every area. But I think for a longevity standpoint, if you're getting started, buy gear that's kind of in the middle of that. So buying gear that's in the middle will allow you to still have pretty lightweight gear that's going to be adaptable for car camping and backpacking. But it's also going to be durable. It's going to be made with materials that aren't going to be susceptible to breaking. So I like to try to find that middle ground and buy things that are great quality, good brand names that are reputable in the backpacking community, but aren't ultralight to where I can break it really easily or not be able to take it car camping when I'm going out with friends on a weekend or something. So 3 types of weights. There's a packed weight. This is the heaviest weight and includes everything that comes with the tent: stuff sacks, guy lines, packaging, poles, stakes, everything. That's called your packed weight. Your trail weight, generally, this is the lightest full setup, includes your tent, flies, and poles. Usually does not include the stakes or stuff sacks. And fast pitch is just your fly, your footprint, and poles. For those that don't know what a footprint is, it's basically a small tarp that goes underneath the tent to protect the bottom area of the tent and also keep it from getting wet and keeping moisture from permeating through your tent and maybe soaking your bag or soaking your ground pad. A footprint is a great thing to buy along with your tent. It's going to prolong the life of your tent, so keep it from getting roughed up when you lay it down on the ground. And it'll also insulate it and keep it a little bit drier if it were to rain. And then 4 different types of camping setups. If you're out there, there's obviously the tent, ultralight tent. There's a bivouac. Bivouac or a bivvy is basically a cocoon for your sleeping bag. You can buy little miniature bivouacs that are almost like tents, but they're not. And you can slide right into them, and there's just enough room to move your head around, but your whole body is kind of surrounded by this small little bivvy tent thing. That would be if you're wanting to go super ultralight and it's just one person, it's only you could have that with you. There's a car camping tent, and then there's hammocks. I see a lot of my friends bring, hammocks out, and works just fine. Just kind of know how to use it and have a good idea of where you're going. Make sure it's not going to be on an exposed bald or ridge that doesn't have any trees, and then you're stuck with a hammock that you can't set up. So consider the options before you go out. It's all in the details. So interior storage is always a benefit. Places to stow your headlamp, keys, any other small items like we talked about on the backpack earlier, having those little zippers on the outside. These are all things that, make for good storage for important things. And ventilation is very important. How much of the tent body is mesh? More mesh means more venting. My quarter dome 2 from REI that I've had for a long time has great venting. Like we talked about, that's a double wall tent. The first wall of that tent is just completely vented. So if I take that fly off and I don't have it on for the night, the airflow through that tent is incredible. I feel like I just can feel the wind all night, and it's just really nice and breezy. But if you didn't want that, you can have a tent with less venting. A lot of options. Footprints, like we talked about, get a footprint. It will save your tent for the long run. It'll prolong the life. Just make sure you ask somebody to add that in when you go to buy your first tent. Reflective guy line. So let's not get into that for now, but basically reflective guy line, your tent can have different reflective pieces on it that help it stand out. If you're walking around at night with your headlamp, to be able to see it, to be able to see lines that you might be tying off to stakes, and you'll want to trip over those. The reflective guy lines will show you when you're shining your headlamp on them where that piece of line is, so that you don't trip over them. Most tents have a lot of reflective wear on them already, but just another feature to think about. All right, so how to pack your backpack. Packing can be broken down into 3 zones. The first zone being the bottom zone. Good for bulky gear and items not needed until camp. That could be your sleeping bag, of course. A lot of backpacks in the very bottom will have one little zipper you can zip open like that and stuff your sleeping bag in the very bottom, and then don't think about it. Everything else will layer in on top of that. The core zone is good for your denser, heavier items. That could be your pots. That could be your extra clothes, things you don't have to have right in a moment's notice or in a little lunch break. These are things that you can stuff in that core zone. The top zone is good for bulkier essentials you might need on the trail if you're wanting to change a jacket, or if you had a vest ready in case you got hot in your big jacket, you can switch the big jacket to the vest. Snacks, I like to keep most of my quick and easy trail bars on pockets that I can grab pretty easily and pretty accessibly. But if you're packing a sandwich and lunch and you don't want it to get smashed, I would put that down in the top zone of that pack so that it's protected, and then I could just open the little hood off the top and pull it right out. Tool loops and latch on points, good for oversized or overly long items. I've got a little saw that I'll bring. I'll attach it to the outside. And then I know we're getting close to that 7 o'clock hour, so I'm trying to get it almost there. We're almost to the end.
You're doing great, Cole. Keep going.
We're going to skip this how to pack your backpack because we just went over that. I'll cover it really roughly. So remember, there's 3 zones. The very bottom, your sleeping bag, your ground pad, your stove, things you're not going to need until you get to camp. And then after that can become your layers and then your food on top. And all the other little accessories, your headlamp and things, you can put those in pockets.
Cole, it may be worth sharing that video, just visually to see what goes where. I don't know how long it is, but it might be worth sharing.
Okay.
To you though.
Hi.
Let's try it. Let's see how long it is. It's 6
Hi,
minutes.
my name is Taylor G. I'm an editorial fellow here at Outside Magazine. And last summer, I thru hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. So today, what I wanted to show you was how I packed my backpack, which is an important skill to learn if you want to be happy and not miserable on the trail. So this is how I did it. So when I was packing my backpack, I could think of it in 4 different categories. You have what's on the bottom, what's in the middle, what's on top, and what's in the accessory pockets, often on the outside. Knowing those different categories and the weight distribution is really important to packing your backpack right. The very first thing I always put in my backpack is my sleeping bag. And there are a few different reasons for that. One of the reasons is that you always want your lightest gear at the bottom of your backpack. A lot of people think your backpack should be like a grocery bag where you're trying to put like the heaviest items at the bottom and lighter weight stuff on top. You don't want to do that for your backpack. It's going to hurt your back. So the most common thing is to put your sleeping bag at the bottom because it takes up quite a bit of volume for not that much weight. It also is something that you're not going to need to use until the very end of your day and you're setting up camp. So there's no problem to keep it at the bottom of your backpack and you can just leave it there for your entire hike. So to finish off the bottom section of my pack, I would usually put in the other pieces of gear that I wouldn't need until I set up my sleep system at night. So that would include my base layer clothing, my sleeping pad, which is also relatively lightweight and I won't need when I'm hiking during the day. And finally, the sleeping bag liner, which I would also not use until the end of the day. After I have the bottom section, which is supposed to be lighter weight, completed, I would usually go to the middle section. The middle section is where you want your heaviest items. You not only do you want them in the middle, you want them to be as close to your back as possible. So usually what I would do is I would put adjacent to one another my earth sack, which is where I keep my food. And then right next to that, one of the other heavier, bigger items I have is my backpacking tent. And they would go side by side to one another. In addition to my food sack, I will usually put on top of that my stove system. That will usually just go right on top of my earth sack. And now the 3 heaviest items I might have, which in my case was the tent, the stove, and the earth sack, are in the middle, are closest to my back, and are going to be the most comfortable to carry on a 20.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop this for a second and just comment on this. So everything else that you would have, you can stuff in different zippers. One thing he didn't cover that I've found myself to be a little bit troubling once you have this pack almost packed is your bladder. There's usually a sleeve that is on the inside of the backpack where your bladder will be pushed down into. And if you have your pack almost packed up and it's almost full, getting that bladder down into that sleeve is not very easy. So sometimes I would recommend putting the bladder in first and connecting the hose to your shoulder, getting that set up first, and then starting to pack the pack of everything else, because otherwise you might not be able to get that bladder down the sleeve. That's just something to think about.
Hi, my name is Taylor G.
All right, so, and then let's get into the last couple things to think about for backpacking, which is your boots. So I want to share this video really quick, talk about boots for a minute.
Finishing a walk or a hike with feet that still feel great is the job of hiking boots. Let's look at the 3 things that matter most. There's the support the boots give you, the materials that it's made of, and how the boots fit your feet. This information is key to your comfort on the trail. Most support comes from the underfoot midsole of the boot and the cuff that wraps around the ankle. Boots with stiffer midsoles give more support and protection to the soles of your feet from rocks and roots poking up from the trail. And as the cut of the boot gets higher, it naturally gives your ankle more support from twisting and bending. When it comes to materials, a lined boot with water resistance is great for rainy conditions or for crossing streams, while a more breathable boot will be better for keeping cool in warmer weather. As far as weight, softer and lighter weight boots are often the most comfortable right out of the box and won't tire you out on longer hikes. But for heavier loads, burlier, stiffer materials give you more support and last longer. Just be sure to break them in before your first big trip. The fit of a boot is actually the most important aspect. No boot is ideal if it doesn't fit well. They need to hold your foot securely in place and not let your heel raise up as you step. At the same time, your toes must have wiggle room so they don't hit the front as you go down hills. Going downhill with a pack on will push your toes forward, and you don't want them hitting the front of the boot, so wiggle room for your toes is a must. A good fit will help avoid blisters and keep your feet happy, especially as the amount of gear you carry gets larger and you go on longer hikes. So come in to NEREI and ask questions.
All right, and the last thing, let's talk about layers really quick. This is a short video.
It doesn't matter what the weather's like or what season you're hiking in. Your basic backpacking clothes stay the same. When the sun's shining and the birds are chirping, a non-cotton wicking base layer may be all you need. When the leaves start changing and the snow flurries hit, it's time to add your warm, insulating mid-layer. And for torrential downpours, windy ridges, or just a light rain, you'll be glad you packed your shell layer. So there you have it. No matter where you go or when you head out, make sure you bring your base layer, your mid layer, and your shell.
All right, and the last two slides that I have, pro tips for backpacking. Weight adds up quickly. Try and shave down things that you don't have to have. Get to know federal lands and permits required for the backcountry camping. Most state parks, most national parks are going to have permitting, so make sure you look into where you're going and get a permit, get a backcountry site reserved. Stay organized, like we talked about. Pack the night before when you're calm, collected, and comfortable. Not the morning of when you're trying to rush out the door and you'll forget something. Go with an experienced backpacker. Find a mentor that you might be friends with that goes a lot and go out with that person. Learn from them, ask questions. That is one of the best ways to learn. Get in shape. This is also something that is overlooked. A lot of people assume, oh, I'm just walking in the woods, no big deal. Well, there could be a lot of elevation to climb. There could be a lot of technicality that you didn't expect. And getting in shape before you go will give you a better experience out there. Prep meals beforehand. You can buy backpackers freeze-dried meals, and you can also bring rice. And you could I like to cut up some veggies and throw some spinach in and throw it in a pot and mix it with some rice and mix it with some pasta. All kinds of different ways you can do it. You've got a great GPS on your phone. Use it. You can download the AllTrails app. That's my favorite app to use, or you can use a traditional GPS if you find yourself wanting to have a really nice GPS. Pay extra for a high quality backpack. Like we talked about earlier, Osprey is a great brand, but there's a lot of brands out there. Osprey also warranties their anything really. They're one of the best warranties in the game. So if you had any issues with your backpack, they're always going to cover your butt on that. Camp near but not too near water. And then leave no trace etiquette. And dream big. Think of some cool trips that you can do once you start to get some experience under your belt and start pushing it a little bit more. Try for a 2-nighter, a 3-nighter. Maybe you want to do a whole AT through hike. Who knows? But I hope that this conversation has brought some new ideas to mind. Maybe maybe a refresher for people that are familiar with backpacking. And I hope it was informative, and it did mainly cover gear. And I wish we had another hour. I could get more into the rough details of all kinds of other things that go along with backpacking, because there's a lot to learn. But this is more of a beginner's 101 and just a rough guide to the gear that you would need. And if you're not from Chattanooga, this is just a slide that won't pertain to you. But if you do live in Chattanooga, a couple of the outfitters, as you might know, REI, Rock Creek Outfitters, Four Bridge Outfitters, and the Gear Closet. These are some local stores that we have near us that are going to have used backpacking equipment or new backpacking equipment. Take a look at your gear outfitters in your local area. Make sure that you can find one that is going to have the gear that you would need, and start shopping for your backpacking stuff. And thank you for coming out and listening to us tonight. I hope that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you guys. We appreciate it. If you have time to stick around, we're going to get to the Q&A portion. We've received several questions in the Q&A. So we're going to go through those now. I'm going to pose them to Cole, and hopefully we don't trip him up with any of those. If you guys do need to go, you are welcome to go. You will receive the follow-up email with the presentation slides, the recorded webinar, and a survey link, and the sign-in sheet, and just everything, the gear checklist of what to pack so you don't forget anything on your first time out. But we do appreciate you guys spending an hour with us. So if you do need to go, we totally understand. For those that want to stick around, Q&A, here we go. Shunda would like to know, wearing underwear, should she, and how many change of clothes? I guess, Shunda, we also need to know, how many nights are you going? So that would have been a good, like, how many nights are you going to go? But yeah, I guess real quick, Cole, kind of cover, like, you kind of showed it at the end, and this question came in very early. So maybe the question got answered on that video you showed of base layer, outer layer, and shell and all that, but maybe a suggestion from 1 night to maybe a 3-night backpacking trip.
Yeah, so it depends on how long you stay out, like you said, but I always have an extra layer. I have an extra base layer. Typically, I don't have an extra mid layer. I will have an extra base layer. I'll have an extra pair of socks. I'll probably have an extra pair of underwear if it's going to be a 2-nighter. It's nice to have fresh clothing to change into, or if in case something gets wet, you've got a backup. You don't want to get too lost in bringing a bunch of mid layers and other jackets. I like to have a rain jacket. I have a mid layer, or a really warm mid layer that could be a really nice puff jacket. But then the extra stuff is really just in the base layer and the socks, maybe an extra pair of underwear. That's all I would bring. If it ends up being a 4-night trip, then you can bring accordingly how much you would need, but typically just one extra piece of clothing for the base layer and socks and such.
Hey, and you touched on it earlier, like you want to be in shape, like you don't want to go out there and be miserable. So do a little training beforehand. Shunda would also like to know, do you have a recommended how much weight should you train with to kind of prepare yourself?
I guess that depends on your experience with walking. First of all, I mean, if you're already training in your neighborhood or on your local trail, get used to walking in general, get used to hiking, just day hiking. After you get done day hiking and you want to start putting weight on your back, I would start with 10 pounds, very light. But if you're carrying a day pack, typically it's going to be around 5 to 10 pounds, depending on what you're bringing. If you're bringing lunch and some layers and first aid kit and all those things, you're already up to around probably close to 10 pounds. So 10 to 15 pounds to start. And then you can kind of jump up from there, but start small, kind of see how your body feels, and go up in increments that feel safe.
Yeah, and I think everyone's different, so that is kind of a hard question to ask or answer. All right, Gearin, and I hope I said that right. He's been very active in our chat. I like this guy already, and I don't even know him, but he wants to know, what do you think of quilts? They're kind of new in Europe, which is where he is joining us from. They just now got into fashion, quilts, and he's trying to go ultra light, moving away from sleeping bags. Do you recommend quilts, Cole?
I have no knowledge of quilts, to be completely honest. I don't have an answer for that. I could start Googling quilts, but it sounds like he already has information on that. It's not a common thing. I know that it's definitely not a common gear piece to have for backpacking. I haven't ran into anybody on the trail on the AT through Hiker Wise that has a quilt. I do. This isn't probably the same thing as that you're asking the question about, but I do sometimes bring like a synthetic blanket or a down blanket just to have another thing to have around me on the campfire. But again, I'm out of my expertise. That's outside of what I know, so I can't answer that.
Yeah, and I'll say I hammock camp a lot personally, and so I utilize a quilt, an under quilt that literally like hugs my underside, so I don't get the cold butt syndrome that
Yeah.
typically happens with hammock camping. As far as the ultralight, and I've been curious about this too for bike packing, if taking an ultralight quilt would be a good idea. But everything that I've read, Guerin, is that they do not hold the warmth that a traditional sleeping bag would. So you are going to sacrifice the warmth for the weight is basically what's going to happen. So I don't think it can fully replace a backpack unless you're in a very warm setting. So hey guys, for those of you popping questions in the chat, they may get overlooked there. If you want to pop them in the Q&A, I'm going in order on that right now. Just FYI. Karen wants to know about permits. When going on a backpacking trip, is a permit and reservation always required, or can you just pick a trail and go? Does it vary by location? And where would you search to find that information?
Okay, that's a great question. So almost all state parks will have a website, and most state parks and national parks are going to have permitting. There might be some exceptions to that rule state park wise, but national park wise, I know for sure there are always going to be backcountry permits. Depending on the park, go ahead and find the park website. You'll have to probably do some looking around, but you'll be looking for backcountry reservations, backcountry permits. That's usually the first keyword you would look to find that information. And you'll go into that tab and you'll probably find a calendar of what sites on the map are going to be available. So they'll have specifically the campsites along that trail system that are going to be open on said date, and you'll be able to pick that date ahead of time and reserve your campsite. Some state parks that don't get the kind of activity that a national park would are usually going to have campsites open almost all the time, but always get on your state park website wherever you're going. Make sure that you don't need, whether you need or you don't need, make sure there's not a permit required. If there is, always get a permit. That's not only, to account for you being there, but that helps the rangers that protect that area and control that area know where your location is going to be for an overnighter. And they would be able to know if something happened to you, if you didn't come out, they could report you missing and know exactly where you were last. So it's great for them. It's great for you. And it just keeps everybody organized with not overbooking an area or camping off to the side and kind of ruining a camping area. So yeah, just check all of your state park websites and national park websites before doing any backcountry camping.
Yeah, it definitely varies by site. So that was a great question, though. Thanks for asking it. And good that you knew that you needed it in most places. Nola would like to know, how are unisex packs? Or is it better to get a gender specific pack? Do you know the answer to that, Cole?
I would probably tell you to go talk to a gear expert on that. I know there are unisex packs, and there's definitely gender specific packs, but I'm not an expert on that. I would talk to a gear pro about that more to decide what fits your body the best. A lot of packs are made, for both genders, and they're very adaptable, customizable. So most brands make them customizable for both genders so that you can adapt it to whatever you need for your body type. But I'll relay you to a gear expert, talk to somebody more about that if you want specifics.
I think that's a great idea. They actually measure you in the store. If they're doing it right, they'll measure your torso and hips, girth, all that stuff, your shoulders. And so that's way better to do than trying to figure it out on your own. Just go to a retail store and let them do that for you. You'll get pointed in the right direction. Jordan would like to know, are there any places around Chattanooga where you can rent things like backpacks, sleeping bags, or other equipment?
Let's see, rent backpacks.
I can jump in. So at one point, Rock Creek was doing it. They aren't anymore. I don't know that REI in Chattanooga is doing it. If you are a UTC student, you can rent things from UTC Outdoors in regards specifically to that. And then there was a company that popped up for a minute that would give you everything, and they have since folded. So the answer is a not really. And there has been talk of somebody trying to start a gear closet where that sort of thing could be available. It does not currently exist in Chattanooga unless you are a UTC student, though. So that's the answer to that. Do you recommend the waterproof cases in your backpack? So a lot of them were showing the dry bag, rolling their sleeping bag in it and stuff. Do you recommend doing that, Cole?
Yeah, I think it helps for two reasons. One, it helps you keep things organized, having extra stuff sacks to kind of just organize all your stuff. It helps with that. And second, it obviously helps to keep those things waterproof. If you're buying the waterproof bags, something that is not going to let water permeate through it. So yeah, I would recommend that. And I use them all the time. I put certain things in certain bags. I have them labeled with what's going to be in that bag, whether it be extra batteries, headlamp, fire starter, all of that goes into one bag. And then the other bag, maybe like you saw that guy put his layers, extra shirt, socks, all in one. That keeps those dry. Sleeping bag in one. Having those stuff sacks are awesome. I use them all the time. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it just helps organize your gear too, right? Besides keeping
Absolutely.
it dry. Megan wanted to know if we offer an outdoor first aid class. We don't specifically, Megan, but we can direct you to organizations that do. And it is a really good course to take just to have that base knowledge. So I apologize. I clicked the wrong button. I was going to actually send you a link or two. Maybe if you can resubmit that question if you're still on here, and I'll change the way I answered. I clicked the wrong button. But Knowles, Solo, those are the two main organizations that provide first aid classes. Sarah would like to know, how do you prepare your camp for bear country?
All right, that's a good question. So we don't have grizzly bears in the Southeast, so I don't have any grizzly bear experience. I do know a little bit about it, but two things you can do. You saw that she had a bear container. I've never used that before. I've always hung my food or anything that smells up in a tree. Typically I'll have a long paracord piece of rope, and I'll have something I could hang my backpack with if it came down to me having to hang it myself. Great Smoky Mountains is usually where I'll backpack that typically has bear issues or bear encounters. They have a lot of cables and setups for that already implemented in the park. But if your park does not have that, I would suggest having either a bear canister that you can put anything that smells in. Obviously having bear spray. Always have a bear spray canister with you if you're going to be hiking somewhere there could be bears. And then having something that you can hang all of that food up with. If you didn't bring a bear canister high up into a tree, a lot of ways to do that. I've had to use creative ways to get that line high up into a tree. Sometimes I'll tie a rock. I'll tie that paracord around a decent sized rock and throw it over a limb that's high enough to where I want it. That's going to be nice and sturdy. And then once that rock comes back down, I'll attach that rope back to my backpack and hoist it on up there. There's all kinds of ways that you can do that. But yeah, just know if the park has those cable systems that you can use to put your pack up in the air away from bears, or bring a bear canister just to go ahead and put all the food in it. But keep in mind that bear canister is going to take up a lot of space in your backpack. So that's just something to think about if you're planning on having that with you.
Yeah, and Bonnie did a follow-up. If you have a case, just consider weight. So if your waterproof case is like made of plastic and it's heavier than those dry bags, just consider if you want that heavier case and that something dry versus a bag that's really lightweight that also keeps things dry. So sorry to kind of go off on a different tangent. I was reading the chat. Deva, anything you can do to prevent snakes from getting in your tent? Newbie here. Snakes are almost as bad as rats, and they scare her. So, do you have anything you do to prevent snakes from getting in your tent? Zip it. Zip your tent. Yeah, zip your tent. When you're not in your tent, when you've left it, zip it. That keeps bugs and snakes and all things out. That's the best answer I've got.
Yeah, another tip to add to that, and this is not in regards to snakes, maybe something that snakes eat, but when you're getting in your tent at night, if it's in the summertime where you do have mosquitoes or bugs flying around, if you will put your headlamp into that red light mode, it will take that really bright light and put it into the red light mode where it's not super bright, and you can get into your tent, take your boots off, and it won't attract a bunch of bugs into your tent while you're trying to get in your tent and take your boots off. So if you'll put it on that low light mode, you won't attract a bunch of bugs into your tent right before you zip it and then be stuck with a bunch of bugs in your tent. Put your headlamp in the low light mode or turn your light off altogether, take your boots off, and then zip your tent up. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole tent full of bugs and you're not going to be too happy.
Rebecca, I hope you'll answer in the chat what a bear banger is, because somebody was asking, and I hope you'll answer because I want to see what your answer is.
A bear banger?
Yeah, a bear banger. And
like
I don't know.
Grenade?
I think that's maybe a Canadian term that us US folks are not familiar with. So I hope you'll answer that, Rebecca.
Fire in the whole bear banger.
Or pots and pans. I'm banging the bears away. Silly Americans. Okay, what are the pro con of a big Agnes with an internal pad pocket and no bottom insulation? And I know that's a sleeping bag, but I don't know exactly what they're referring to. Do you, Cole?
Let me look down.
What are the pros, cons of a big Agnes with the internal pad pocket and no bottom insulation? And if you don't know, we'll ask Patrick if he's, you know? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of know. My sleeping bag doesn't have that, but I did see that option when I was looking through what to buy from Big Agnes. Yeah, I think that's a good alternative, as far as getting your ground pad into that sleeve and keeping it from having any of the ground temperature affecting that R rating. I don't know a whole lot about that type of bag, but I'll tell you that I think it's a good option. It's definitely a good option. I've just never had one myself, but I did see that those were options when I was looking to buy mine. It definitely helps from what I've read. I've just not personally used it before. So I would say it helps keep you more warm. It's going to help keep that ground pad off the ground and keep it more close to your body where you can maintain that heat. So from what I know, I think it's a good option if you're trying to save a little money and not have a super high rated R value on your ground pad and just want to have that sleeve to put it in there.
Cool. We got more bear questions. I want to hear more about bear safety. So Tomohawk wants to know, let's say I'm going on a 3-night backpacking trip. What do I keep all the food in that I prepare and keep the garbage also? How do I keep all that safe from the bears?
Well, we just talked about ways to put your food in something that's going to, contain the smell. But typically, just that's kind of a hard question to answer, I guess, because I guess it depends on the area. I've always, from my personal experience, hung the pack on cables or hung it myself with paracord really high and made sure all of my food is stuffed inside a sack that's going to contain the smell or in a bear container like you saw in that video early on. But a garbage bag is another thing I always carry. If it just comes down to trash and just some raw food left over that I don't have a container for, I'll throw it in that garbage bag and throw that garbage bag into whatever I'm going to seal everything off in, and then put it in my backpack and hoist my backpack up into a tree really high up away from where anybody or any bear can get to it. I'm gonna stop there. That's the best answer.
Yeah, and maybe we'll let Rebecca come on and speak to the bear stuff because she's dealing with even polar bears up there and
saw
some
that.
systems she has. Yeah, so maybe
Jeez.
we'll let her chit chat about it in a little bit. I've got a couple female questions have come in. As a woman alone, is it good to take my dog with me, or do dogs attract bears or other animals to the campsite? As a female myself, and then there's another question: how do you deal with hiking alone if you do? And that I believe came from a female. I know Jordan's kind of a in between name, so I don't know for sure. Either way, women do have to worry a little bit more about hiking alone, your surroundings and what's going on. So I get kind of the tentativeness and the fear associated with that. I had dogs and I would always hike with my dogs. I never actually took them camping with me because my husky just we weren't going to share a hammock, period. And I hammock camp. So I haven't heard any reason why a dog would attract a bear to a campsite. Have you, Cole? No. If anything, the dog is going to alert you that there is something stirring outside. So I think it's a great idea to take your dog with you when you hike or go camping, especially if it's a well-trained dog, because it can offer that a bit of protection and or just security and comfort. As a female hiking alone, or anybody hiking alone, just being aware of your surroundings. As Cole mentioned earlier, leaving an itinerary with somebody. So if you don't show back up at the expected time, somebody knows to go look for you and where to go look for you. Those are the biggest things. And as with anything, the first time you do it, it's gonna be scary. It's gonna be uncomfortable. The more times you do it, the more comfortable it becomes. I'm now to the point when I go hiking by myself, I feel fine. I don't even give it a second thought. But the first few times I did it, it was a little nerve-wracking. So I hope those answered both of those questions. If not, feel free to drop another one in there. Heather would like to know, I guess it depends where you are going, but if you are doing a typical backpacking trip, how long do you usually hike a day? So what's your distance per day?
That there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I would account for the elevation, how much elevation you're going to be climbing in that day. That's gonna take a big toll on your energy, depending on how much elevation you've got to climb. The technicality of the trail is a big factor into that. Your physical conditioning has a big part in that too. Just how much cardio you've been training and how much conditioning you've been doing to this backpacking world. Backpacking is a different animal. You can be hiking 8 or 9 miles day hiking and then put a pack of about 35 to 40 pounds on your back and throw in some elevation and technicality, and you might hike half of that. So it could wear you down really fast. Like we talked about, start small and gauge your energy level, gauge your endurance and physicality when it comes to testing that weight load and testing how far you can go with that weight load. I don't think anybody should go out there and push it too fast, too strong. Right off the bat, I would say start small, like we talked about in the beginning, and then kind of work up to what you think you can achieve. I personally, when I was backpacking as a kid, my dad we'd do 3-nighters, and we were averaging around 10 miles a day. Sometimes we do a little bit more. 10 miles is also for somebody who's got a lot of energy, wakes up pretty early, gets ready to go pretty early, and, gets on the trail. Your through hikers will do sometimes more than 20 miles a day. But if you're just an average day for a through hiker, it could be 15 to 20 miles. People that are really trying to cut off time could do 30 miles in a day. But your typical day for like a 3-nighter would be around 10 miles. But that also I'm not factoring in elevation and technicality. It just depends on the area. So give all that consideration.
Yeah. Kirby would like to know, can you talk more about water? How much to take with you, where to refill, life straws, water bottle, filters, all that?
Yeah. So you can go to Walmart and buy the Sawyer filter system, which is really cheap, but works great. It's a great filter. I use it. It comes with a bladder that you can fill up and then filter right out of a small little hose thing, and it's worked great for me. If you have a filter, you can, and if you know where you're going has a water source, then having tons of water is not that big a deal. You can kind of plan on what you're going to drink throughout the day until you get there, have a little bit left over, and then fill up that night or the next morning for whatever you might need. But that's kind of a broad question. It's hard to answer. If you're going to a desolate area without a lot of water and you're not going to have a water source, then bringing a lot of water is essential. And it just really depends on where you're going, if you can even filter water or not. If I can't filter water, I'll typically bring a big bladder full of water and 2 Nalgene's. I don't even know how many ounces or liters of water that would be. I just kind of gauge it off of what I typically drink in a day and bring more for cooking and including the dinner and the breakfast if I'm going to have oatmeal. I don't know. That's kind of a broad question. I'm going to kind of skip over that.
Yeah, no, I think you answered it well. Like in the very beginning, you said start small. So what do you do for a day hike? And then now you're going to extend that several more hours. How much more would you need to carry? And then start small with your water filtration system. Start with a life straw. Just have something available. Use it a few times. See if you like it. Invest in other things as you get more and more into backpacking, if you enjoy it. All right. So Deva has a goal of being able to do a trip to Mount LeConte, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Cole. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Any recommendations for training? And then do they allow you to backpack there, or can you only stay at the lodge? That I don't know.
I do know that. I have a lot of fond memories at Mount LeConte. I grew up hiking there with my dad, so I love that area. There's a whole host of trails to choose from. And no, you don't have to stay at the lodge. The lodge is, if you want to be bougie about it, you can not even have a backpack on your back and you can hike to the top and have a meal served to you and hot chocolate and wake up that morning with a Southern breakfast. But if you want to do it the right way, the backpacker's way, don't even have to worry about the lodge. They have a shelter on top of the mountain that you can stay at. Here's one thing to remember about this shelter. You cannot build fires in it right now. That's kind of a game changer. I hate not being able to have a fire when I'm out in the backcountry. So the shelter at the very top, you can't have a fire. You do have to reserve on the Great Smoky Mountain National website. It's hard to get this shelter too. In peak times when a lot of people are trying to get out, it's reserved months in advance. So make sure you get on months before you plan on going and reserving it, because people go to it all the time. A good fallback option, if you don't want to be at the very top and you still want to be at a beautiful spot, Charlie's Bunyan is next to Icewater Springs Shelter. That's a little bit lower down the mountain, and it's just as pretty, still really good view, kind of halfway mark on the mountain between LeConte and where that is. It's a shelter that you can reserve maybe a month out, less than that sometimes, and find spots for that. But training, to hit on the training part, Mount LeConte's pretty steep, really, no matter how you cut it. Alum Cave starts gradual until it gets to where the elevation goes straight up, and then it's straight up for pretty much 4 miles, so it's pretty steep. I would say day hiking it a lot, just getting used to the day hiking aspect of having a smaller load. If you're already doing that, you're probably ready to take it on backpacking. You could do the Alum Cave Trail, which is like 5-6 miles, or you could go to the Boulevard Trail and do a 9-10 miler and it not be just straight up the whole time. It's more of a moderately gradual climb to the top. You're getting me passionate. I love the Great Smoky Mountains and I love Mount LeConte, so I could go on and on about that, but I hope that answered your question.
I think that was a great answer. Jordan would also like to know, do you use Spot, that satellite device? I think the backcountry in the Southeast Tennessee region is very different than the backcountry in any Canadian territory. So if I've never personally used that, nor thought that I ever should use that. Cole, have you used it? Do you recommend it?
I've used a Spot before, and it wasn't for backpacking, but I mean, yeah, if you're going to be really remote, having that would be a game changer as far as being able to send a text message or something in an emergency situation. But from my experience, having that was really nice. They're very resourceful, and you can have all the maps downloaded onto it and be able to send a text message to friends and family, let them know you're all right, or to emergency services if it came down to it. I think there is like a membership fee or like a monthly fee or annual fee or something you'd pay to have that. But depends on where you live and what you're going to need it for.
Yeah. Joanna Meeker, Bureau of Land Management Areas, you can camp without permit for 1 to 2 nights without the permits. You must be self-sufficient to do it though. So she was just kind of offering a suggestion. There are places that you can go without permits.
Yeah.
We just don't have a lot of BLMs here in the Southeast region. Thank you for saying that, Joanna. Would you recommend bringing a cell phone and a solar charger? If you do you have any recommendations? So I guess they're looking for a recommendation for a solar charger as well as a GPS.
I probably mentioned it, but AllTrails is what I use on my phone, and I don't have a fancy solar charger. You're going to need to probably get advice from a gear expert on that. I do have a charger that I'll usually bring with me. It's a cheapo charger that I bought, but it does the job. It could charge my phone 3 or 4 times, and usually that's all I'll need if I'm going on a 1 or 2 nighter. But if you're wanting a solar one, which I guess you would want to have if you have several pieces of technology that you need to charge, or if you're going to be through hiking and you can't get back to charge your charger, having that solar charger that can be charged back up would be nice to have. Otherwise, you probably don't need a solar charger unless you've got pieces of technology that have to be charged up for a 4 or 5 night trip or something. But I have a cheapo charger. I bring it with me. It can charge my phone 3 or 4 times. That's all I need. And AllTrails app is a great app to use. I've loved using it, but there are other ones as well. So.
Yeah, good questions. Stephen is in Hickson, wants to go backpacking with a 6 and 4-year-old. Recommendations for good backpacks for beginners with kids. I would love to answer this one, Cole. DeSoto State Park in Alabama is a great one. They've got these 3-sided shelters. I actually did it with my own kiddo, and you can do a 3/4 of a mile hike in or go a little bit longer. Beautiful setting. Cloudland Canyon State Park is another one. They have a backcountry loop. And so depending on your kids, and you're just getting them used to the idea of carrying their own backpack and, not dealing with the whiny for too long, you can pick how far into the loop you want to go. And now you're also in a state park setting. So once you get your tents all pitched and you stay a night or 2, now you can venture and go see the cool sites that state park has to offer, which is typically waterfalls and cool trail systems and things like that. So those are my recommendations. Cole, do you have any others you would like to add to that?
Oh man, there's a lot, really. I mean, there are a lot, but depending on how much experience your kids have day hiking, if they're, really energetic and do well on 6-7 mile hikes, you could probably take them on a 4-mile backpacking trip if they have a very light load, and they'll be just fine. Yeah, my dad taught me the hard way. I would moan and complain the whole way if we went on a long trip, and he didn't care. We'd just keep going. So maybe you want to try that out, or maybe you don't. I don't know. So Sunshine answered that question good.
Yeah, everyone's parenting technique is different. So yeah, you can start out easy or do the tough route. And if you want more information about that, feel free to reach out to us. When we send out the follow-up email, if you want to ask us specifically, we can offer some more recommendations. We do know the Southeast. So that leads me into Doug's question. Given that we are in Chattanooga, what are our favorite hiking, backpacking spots in the Southeast? He's up in New York, and he does not want us to talk about tailgating at Rocky Top before a UT football game. Don't worry, we don't do that.
Oh man.
So Cole, you kind of talked about it already. Cole loves the Smoky Mountains. Am I safe to assume that that is your favorite spot to go backpacking and hiking at, or is there something else?
Man,
It's
I
tough
would
to
have
choose, isn't
it's
it?
tough to choose, but I'm gonna put Roan Mountain in North Carolina is a hike called Carver's Gap. It is on basically a ridge line that's exposed. It's like grassy bald style hiking for most of the trail, but it is the most beautiful trail that you will hike probably anywhere in the Southeast as far as panoramic views go. It's just gorgeous. And at different times of the year, you'll get rhododendron flowering out there, which is really pretty. In the spring, you'll get the wildflowers. In the fall, you'll get the colors. In the winter, you still have life. There's a lot of grass still up there, really tall grass. You'll get llamas that graze up there, a couple, sometimes wild horses. Grayson Highlands is a beautiful area too. That's up towards Virginia. I like that area a lot. As far as the Smoky Mountains go, yeah, Mount Lacan is infamous. It's really well known. The Tellico area is also really pretty. There's a kind of under the radar hike in the Tellico area called the Hangover, and the hike's called the Hangover Bob's Bald, and it's in Tellico. It's in the Tellico area. Give that a Google search. Look for the Hangover Bob's Bald in Tellico. It is beautiful too. It kind of overlooks the Smokies and some different areas looking into Tennessee. Those are hikes that I'd recommend. There's a whole lot of them I could put out there, but those are probably my top 3.
Yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question, Doug. And come visit us from New York. New York's got some beautiful spots too. Ivy would like to know butane versus white gas stoves. Thoughts?
I don't know a lot about white gas stoves. I actually had to look that up. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what white gas is either. I use butane. I don't know. Is white gas something that can be used in a colder climate?
I read that, but I don't know a lot about it.
Okay. We can't answer that question, Ivy. You have stumped us. You win a prize. I don't know what that prize is, but you win a prize. It's going to be an Outdoor Chattanooga sticker, actually. All right. We have a few more. Chat function doesn't have the save option so that we can save the chat contents. Yeah, I know, Doug. If you want to, I tried to earlier and there's no way I can capture it all, but you can kind of like copy paste. So take your cursor and copy and paste whatever you want to steal out of there.
Hey,
yeah.
I just want to add, I did look that up. I think white gas might be what you typically buy from like a legit outfitter store. So if you go to Walmart, you'll see these fuel canisters that are really cheap, and they might be what was it was white gas or what?
Butane.
So maybe butane is the cheaper option that you see at your Walmart or your Bass Pro or whatever. And I have tried to take those out in the backcountry, and they don't produce much heat. It takes 2 or 3 times as long to heat anything that I'm using to cook. And maybe I'm just ignorant on this, and I've been buying the white gas MSR fuel canisters from REI and from other legitimate outfitters and not even known it. I just always go to an outfitter that's going to have an MSR fuel canister it's probably white gas, and it seems like white gas is going to be, it's going to produce the most BTUs. It's really exceptionally hot. I'm reading about it right now. Yeah, MSR gas products are very good. MSR is what I use. If you go to an REI or anywhere else, that's what they're going to have. I would not buy the fuel canisters from Walmart and expect them to produce the kind of heat that you'll get out of an MSR or the ones that you'd buy from a legitimate outfitter. I hope that kind of answers the question, but don't buy the cheap stuff. It's going to make it take forever in the backcountry.
Doug, you are cracking me up tonight. Doug would like to know how far to the craft brewery from the trailhead at your favorite spot in North Carolina. Man, we might need to have a discussion with Doug and put him on prime time. Hey, I've made a special trip one time to North Carolina to hit up all the breweries, and you can do a paddling brewery tour on the French Broad. So I do highly recommend that. And then the AT actually crosses over the French Broad, right? And is my geography correct on that?
I think it does.
Okay. So anyways, I don't know. Cole, do you have a favorite craft brewery close to a trailhead in North Carolina? Doug wants to know.
There definitely are. I'm just blanking on which one it would be. I don't know, Doug.
There's so many up there.
There's a lot. Yeah, like as far as right off the trailhead goes, there might be like one or two in There's like one in Pisgah National Park. There's a bunch that are like within 15, 20 minutes from a trailhead anywhere in North Carolina. And we've got them all in Chattanooga too. So come to Chattanooga, you'll get done with a hike and be in the city in 10 minutes and you'll have all kinds of breweries. So
I'm just going to tell him all of them. How about that?
good question.
Yeah. All right, guys. We keep getting some more questions come through. We're almost a full hour over. If we can maybe not answer questions about snowshoeing, we'll maybe make that a new workshop. Looks like John said white gas is Coleman fuel used in Coleman stoves and lanterns. He has an old bulky backpacking stove that he uses the Coleman fuel in. Doug is going to do 2 shows nightly. Don't forget to tip the server. Jennifer, if a 60 liter is common, does it work well for overnight as it would for 2 to 3 days? A 60 liter backpack, if it's common, does it work well for overnight as well as a 2 to 3 day trip?
60 liters is a big backpack. I do have one. And yes, it could be used for just an overnighter. It could be a little bit overkill in the long run if you're really kind of getting into the weight aspect of things. I think I also have, let me just give it a quick Google search and see what mine other one is. I have the 50. I have a 50 liter as well. And that seems to be the perfect size for a 2-nighter, a 1-nighter. And I can also use the 50 liter for probably more than that if I'm just efficiently packing it. The 65 liter is pretty big, but it's great if you're wanting to have a pack that can accommodate a long trip. Other than that, yeah, you might find yourself being a little frustrated with the extra size weight stuff, but there are on some packs you can take off the hood and you can take other things off sometimes to reduce weight, but 50 liter is pretty standard. That's going to be pretty adaptable for most.
And the question came from Jennifer, which I don't want to assume, but I'm going to assume is a female. And so would a 50 liter still be appropriate for a petite size female versus an average size female versus, the average male size?
Yeah, I think it would be.
Okay.
I think it'd be fine.
And then Jennifer would love for you to list your favorite hikes, which I know you verbally did. So I'm telling her that I will include those in the follow-up email. So you'll have to email me the list, Cole. Last question from Ivy, and we're going to wrap this up. I can't believe 36 of you are still sitting on the call with us. Thank you so much for being here, guys. We appreciate it. Ivy has a 50-year-old Svea 123, and it's white gas Coleman fuel, never used a butane stove. Oh, wasn't even a question. She was just also commenting on the white gas versus butane. Good. We're done. Guys, you are awesome. We appreciate you so much. We hope that you learned something tonight. And actually, we learned things from you as well, which is, I think, the cool part about this. We come in as the so-called experts, but I usually walk away learning something from you guys as well. So we appreciate it. Keep an eye on your email for the follow-up email. Give us some feedback on this thing. Let us know how we did tonight. What other workshops you would like to see. since these have done so well, we're going to keep doing this. We're going to offer one a month moving forward in the virtual platform. So fill out on that survey what you would like to learn about, and maybe we can do it. And if we can't, maybe we'll get a Stan or a Doug or a Rebecca that has a lot of knowledge in a specific area, like how to deal with bears, come on and let them lead one. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
So if you guys aren't familiar with Outdoor Chattanooga, Google us, go check out our website, follow us on social media, go to our YouTube channel, smash the like button, do all the things. We appreciate you. And until next time, y'all stay safe and stay well out there. Thanks for your knowledge, Cole.
Thank you for listening, everybody, and thank you for joining in on the virtual workshop. It's been fun. I like a lot of smiles, a lot of cheers. Thanks,
Yeah.
Doug, for the laughs.
Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good night. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.